So, I was just watching Russell Brand's video from today, and I've been a fan of his since forever. I've been watching him since he's been doing his guru thing, and he's one of the only people, well, one of the handful of people who, talk about the news that's actually going on, and in an honest way, or he tries to find out, and the kind of stuff I talk about, he talks about, but he, uses references and stuff, which I don't do because I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything. Everything I come to, I have ideas about. I watch a lot of fruity videos. I don't know if I'm claircognizant. I don't know if it's something like that. But I've always just, it's clear to me what people's motivations are. It's clear to me, not immediately, but it's pretty easy for me to see what somebody's up to. It's pretty easy for me to see what people are trying to put into place or how things are going to turn out. Because, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if I was a priest in my last life or whatever, but my theory on why we hate Russia, it's, and like I said, I don't. I know that when I was growing up, it was the end of the Cold War. Not the end, but it was the 80s. So it's so funny because I brought up the Sting song Russians, and Sting just replayed it after not playing it for a long time. Because he's like, I didn't have to all the time. And the point is, we were friends all this time. And nobody wants to acknowledge that. And that's why I grew up being afraid of Russia. Like I said, listen to that song. I was a kid listening to that, being like, oh my God, they're going to bomb us. And I hope Sting's right. I hope Sting's hopes are right. By the time that song came out, Khrushchev wasn't even there. I mean, I don't think he was. I didn't know who Khrushchev was. I grew up hearing about Gorbachev and stuff. So, yeah, we were in the Cold War, and Russians were easy villains, and they were villains in every movie, and it was easy to have a big bad villain. And we stopped having an exact big bad villain after that. And it started being random people, and sometimes it was, it started to be people from the Middle East and stuff like that, but it wasn't as clear cut. It was Russia was a clear bad guy when I was growing up, and the people before me, the people who used to have to do, what do you call it? They used to have to, in class, like the generations before us, they used to have to do, drills where they were supposed to hide under their desk in school in case nuclear war was happening. That's why I think Indiana Jones jumped in the refrigerator that time, and it became a nuke the fridge meme. You're supposed to duck and cover, you're supposed to hide under your desk in schools, stupid things. But so like I said, it was I think some people were really comforted by knowing exactly who the bad guy was. Russia. Then Russia, the Iron Curtain came down. They started buying Gucci stuff, and they started acting like us. Like I said, they've been acting like us this whole time, and getting their, Botox, and just, I worked with Russians in New York, and they were very much trying to be that stereotype of fancy pants people, like before Paris Hilton and people like that. They were the ones I knew, were trying to be fashionistas and trying to do the fashion. You know what I mean? They were trying to be obviously wealthy. Obviously, oh, look at the money I have, and they would wear it. You know what I mean? A way that people who looked up to the people on Dynasty would do. You know what I mean? So, it was like, yeah, we're all the same people now. No problem. No harm, no foul. Everybody's friends now. And like I said, I grew up. After that, I would watch all the figure skaters, and everybody was just like one happy family as far as I was concerned. You know what I mean? There was no issue with Russia at all. And then, like I said, Mitt Romney won the Republican nomination, got up, did his speech, and it sounded so Cold War, it scared me, because I'm like, this sounds like something frightening, and Russia's bad, and Russia this, and Russia that, and I haven't heard it in a long time. So even though I'm mostly talking about the Democrats, it's our whole government. It's that part of the government that I don't know where they get their information from. I don't know where they get their agenda from. I don't know who's running the scene. But The reason I think the United States is always, no matter what, they're always trying to fight Russia. I think Russia are the only people they fear. Now, hear me out. We had enemies in other places. You know what I mean? We have other people, you know, trying to come into this country and do things. And, you know, they never see them as the big bad that Russia is. And when I was, when was this? Like, it was a while back now. There was a point, I really hate that I don't remember my years, but let's say somewhere around 2008, I was volunteering in, an ESOL thing that we have in New Bedford for people just to take free ESOL classes. You know, and everybody there is, they're volunteers mostly. I mean, there was actual teachers, but I was a volunteer. There were other people. So the people going there, though, they pretty much, they weren't, most of them weren't, or not most of them, I shouldn't say that. Like, some of them weren't here legally. And the only reason I found out is we had a raid. You can look up whenever that was, and then you'll know when I was there. There was a Bianco raid, and it was a place where they made something. It was this, you know, a sewing place. I forgot if they made parachutes or what they were working on. Anyway, they raided the place, ICE. And it was much, when you went the next day to volunteer, there were people who weren't there suddenly. And, you know, the kind of people around here, you know, what they used to call bleeding heart liberals, they were very much like, oh, it's the worst thing that ever happened, and oh my God. And I was like, wait a minute. You know, look, I'm here, I'm an American, I grew up, you know, in the house I live in right now, which was a block away from where I was helping in this ESOL class, and I'm like, okay, all these people have a job, and I don't. I grew up right here in this town. I went to high school, went away to college, tried very hard, took languages, wanted to be an interpreter. None of that shit worked out for me. I ended up with a bunch of school loans. And because of that, because I can't find a job, I'm over here volunteering, hoping to just either get references or something to help my situation out. And these people are over here getting to learn a language for free. And you mean to tell me they might not even be, I mean, this is what I'm thinking. This is not what I'm saying. You mean to tell me they might not even be here illegally? This is through the school department. Taxpayer money is going to this. Nobody, apart from my first run of education through the school system, nobody's now giving me a free class to learn Spanish so I could put that on a resume. You know what I mean? But these people are getting to learn English for free, and you're telling me that they may or may not be, you know, illegal. And I was like, well, don't they have to fill out papers? Don't they have to have some kind of ID or something? Oh, well, we kind of have a don't ask, don't tell policy. That's what the lady told me, the teacher I was helping, who clearly, I mean, she's just a prototype, you know, Massachusetts Democrat, you know? And I'm just like, are you kidding me? So they just, like, people would come, they would sign up for the class. They wouldn't ask them for any kind of credentials or anything to prove they belonged here. Or they had, you know, it was just like, oh, no, it's fine. You know, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Because I'm over here volunteering my time. Because I can't find a job. These people have a job. And I'm supposed to sit there and cry for them, Argentina. When it's like, no. You know what I mean? And they insisted that Americans didn't want those jobs. What happens? The contract is still out. The company still needs people. There were Americans lined up around the block to take their place. You think those Americans didn't want the job before? They don't want to hire Americans. Here's why. So then, later on, I was trying to understand the dynamic, and I was trying to understand at one point, this teacher also told me about how so many of these people that we're helping, well, you know, they have learning disabilities. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, learning disabilities? They just can't speak English. How do you know they have learning disabilities? Because you're a shitty teacher? You'd assume that they have learning disabilities? And I'm like, what? And as time went on, I'm saying, okay, they are all bleeding heart liberal. They are all these poor people and stuff like that. But in reality, they look down on them. They look at them as below them. That's why they help them, because they see them as less. And that really stuck with me, you know. And I was like, well, this is why, like, if a normal person, say somebody does work in a factory, say somebody does do a kind of job that they could be replaced with people who are in this country illegally, then the person who has that job is going to be worried about that. And they're going to have a problem. They're going to be like, they took our jobs. But a teacher or somebody who thinks they're hot shit isn't worried about these people who they see as lesser than them. They look down upon them, so they're not worried about them taking their jobs. They know they're too hot shit and they're too smart, so they're not worried about that. That's why they will attack the people and call them all this stuff if people are like, hey, wait a minute, you know, Americans need those jobs. Americans need those apartments. You know, we can't just, you know, hand everything over to people who, you know, didn't come here the right way. You know? But I started to realize that these supposed bleeding heart liberals who care about these people so much were actually looking down on them. They weren't threatened by them. They didn't fear for their job and say, this person could take my job. So, you know, because they figured they're stupid and they're all learning disabled and all these poor sad people need my help because I'm so above them, you know. And then so I always said, gee, all these, you know, they don't worry about them. They're not threatened by them. Then years later, I'm watching the whole world, and every time they go back, the same lefties mostly, but government stuff like that, every time they get a bee in their bonnet about Russia again, I'm like, Russia's literally sitting there doing nothing. They'll just wake up one morning and be like, we need to fight somebody, call up Russia. You know, because it's time to and then I said to myself, okay, well, a few years back, we had China and Russia, and our president, Donald Trump, like I said, wanted to be friends with Russia, and they're like, hell no. But they got no problem with being friends with China. I'm like, but China, they're nothing like us. The way they do things is still communist. They're the ones who are still oppressing people. I don't want to be treated the way the Chinese government treats their people. And I'm thinking to myself, gee, why are the Democrats just, I mean, it looks like China's coming for us, or coming to dominate us, or trying to buy up this whole country, or whatever. So, why is everybody worried about Russia instead, when they're just sitting there, you know, doing nothing? And then it hit me, and I put two and two together. Wait a minute, these people, kind of people I said, I was surprised, these bleeding heart liberal types of the olden days, you know, the dyed-in-the-wool Democrats, who are supposed to care about everybody and love everybody so much, I already deduced that the reason that they don't mind illegal, I'm not supposed to say illegal, the reason they don't mind undocumented workers coming here and taking jobs away from Americans is because they won't take their job. So they don't fear them. And that's what I was like, so really it's like, it's racist in a horrible way, because it's not racist, I don't want you here. It's racist, oh, you're such crap, you could never threaten me, so go ahead, do whatever. You're all learning disabled, or you know what I mean? You're like something under my shoe, so I don't have to worry about you. So it's a lack of respect that allows the bleeding heart liberals to be bleeding heart liberals for these people. If they thought that if all the people coming here to take jobs were coming to be teachers and coming to be, you know, the kind of jobs that bleeding heart liberals have, it'd be different. So when I was thinking about why the hell are we going back and being, when China's, you know, coming up to, you know, they're buying up the countries. I mean, our film industry does whatever they want. They seem to be trying to dominate us one way or another, and they're the ones who still treat people like crap. Why is our country just not our country, but a lot of people in our government constantly like waiting to have a fight with Russia, when it's like China we should be worried about? And then I realized, the same people I was talking about before, and I deduced that they were secretly racist and didn't even know it because they looked down upon, you know, people from South America, whatever. I think the reason they're not afraid of China is because they're Chinese. They look at Russia and they see Russia and they say, okay, well, they could be as smart as us. Maybe they're smarter than us. They're like us. So it's almost like a brother thing, or like a sibling rivalry thing. I'm afraid of them because they might be better than us. Are those people over there, they've got all those people and all that money and their economy and they're doing everything? Okay, but they're still not as good as us because they're Chinese. So I don't have to worry about them. That's what I think they're doing. So I'm saying all these people, and the reason we're always fighting Russia is because they're afraid of Russia, because they kind of almost see Russia as equals. Everybody else who may come to this country and invade it one way or another, or try to buy it up, or try to take all the jobs, or whatever they do, they don't worry about them because they don't see them as equal. They see them as less. They see them as something on their shoe. Because they're actually racist. And when they think about anybody who's not, you know, a white person who looks like them and can compete with them in their mind, because they're generalizing and thinking things like that, they don't worry about them. So they'll be like, oh yeah, we can fight this one. Oh yeah, we can handle that one. Got no problem. Okay. So all this time you say, why would they allow Russia to team up with China? Why would they? Because they think that they got China. They think that China's no problem. Because they don't respect them. You know how people will think of Asians as demure and all that stuff, and you know what I mean? I forget. I guess they call it systemic racism. It's not systemic racism. It's some other kind of racism. Anyway, it's just like, oh yeah, we could totally kick your ass, so we're not worried about it. Like if you could kick the ass of the nerds in school, you're not going to worry about that. Oh yeah, whatever. It doesn't matter. He's smart. I could beat him up. You know what I mean? It's some kind... I'm saying that our country hates Russia, where it doesn't hate all these other places, or it's always ready to fight Russia because they fear them. But they don't fear these other people because they think they're better than them. And it's because they're racist. These people who are so adamant about not being racist are the actual racists. And they feel bad for these people because they think that they pity them, because they think they're beneath them, or they're less intelligent, or they're less something. They're lesser somehow. And that's why they don't worry about them. They don't care. Russia's sitting there minding their business. They're getting ready to fight Russia any minute. Because they're not racist against Russians. But they're racist against all these other people, and they see them as lesser. They don't see Russia as lesser, or Russians. They're the competition. They don't see these other people as competition, no matter what, no matter how much money, no matter how much these people make, or how much of this country they buy up, or whatever political clout or whatever. They don't see them coming because they don't see them as a threat. Because they know that they're white and they're better in themselves, in their minds, in their hearts. So they're not worried about it. They know that they can't touch them because they're just above. But with Russia, they're like, could go back to the space race, you know, could go back to anything, you know. Who knows? Oh, they've got better writers than us. Oh, they got better poets than us. That Tchaikovsky was pretty damn good. Uh-oh. Who knows where it goes back to? But to me, that's my theory. And it's a theory I came to from putting two and two together and saying, okay, liberals are like this over here when they're dealing with South American undocumented workers. They're, you know, I realized the reason they care about them so much is that they're racist. And they can care for them because they feel pity because they see them as lesser. If it was an American, they don't pity the American because the American is like them. So if they see an American with no job and no house and no, you know, they need help. Fuck you, you're an American. You know, you could take my job. You know, you don't have a job, good. I'm glad. You're not competing with me. I'm not going to help any Americans, for Christ's sake. You were born here. You were raised here. You could compete with me. These other people, look at them. That's why. That's why they will just, no matter what those people do, no matter what kind of car, no matter, they still see them as less. So there's no competition in their mind for them. So they're good. They're let's help them. Let's leave them alone. But anybody who they see as somebody who could potentially take their place or usurp them or be a teacher like them, or might be as good or equal to them, those people are a threat and they need to be removed. And we need to always be ready to fight those people, whether it's an American or a Russian or somebody else like that. But South Americans, Chinese, oh no, it's okay. Let them do whatever they want. We got it. We're fine. We're not gonna. They're not gonna take us over. They're not gonna take my job. They're not gonna take over our country. Of course not. Duh. That's my theory. So I don't like to call people racist because it seems like people just say that for no reason. But in this case, I put that together, and you could say I'm wrong. That's a conclusion I jumped to. Yeah. But it makes sense to me because it's like every time you turn around, they want to fight Russia. And it's like half the time they weren't even doing anything. And they're allowing Ukrainians, who are also white people, to be wiped off the face of the earth for their agenda, which is to get rid of Russia. I mean, maybe I don't make sense. And there was another video I did where I said 18 and I meant 8. And sometimes words come out wrong. So if something I say really, if it's just a dumb idea, that's one thing. But if it really sounds wrong, like if I'm talking about 2014 and I say 18 years ago, that's my brain somehow saying 18 when I really thought I was saying 8. So that happens sometimes. So I kind of apologize for that, but it can't be helped because I don't know why sometimes a completely different word comes out than the one I thought I was saying. But that's my theory. The United States fears Russia because they're racist against everybody else and they don't need to fear them.